Shoot through it. Don't worry. Chill out. Don't point fingers. You're going to have some rough nights out there. And you want to hear some numbers? We've reached the season of our guy Jeff Fahrer, who is the unofficial statistician for our show and for the Organizations Win Championships podcast. And he says last night the Bulls had at least 43s for only the fifth time in the DeMar Caruso-Lonzo era. And he said teams that take as many threes as the Thunder last night, 39, and make as many as they did, 48%, since the start of 2022-23, have a record of 50-4. You're not going to win a lot of those games. But you can be one of those teams.
You might have one of those nights yourself.
Damn right.
You
might have more than one. You might have a bunch of them. Keep shooting.
Shooting.
I know it's not comfortable for you. Like, wait a second. This isn't fun. We're missing too many of these. They'll go in. Don't worry.
Or maybe they won't.
Those shots, those particular threes from those guys will to their career percentages at some
Care
point.
to expand on that?
I'm just saying that, it's clear that Oklahoma City, like, that's part of everything that they've done with the guys that they've brought in, that they have been willing to play that way and have played that way for most of their young careers. Meanwhile, you've got guys that don't have defined roles, and even on a night when you had a clear edict on what it was that you wanted to do, you still ended up with someone being very unhappy. Vooch wasn't unhappy because the Bulls were missing threes. Vooch was unhappy because he got 8 shots and wasn't the focal point of the offense. And these were some of the questions that all of us had when the Bulls brought Vooch back. Was he didn't seem happy at the end of last year. He didn't seem happy in the playoff round. And it was partially because he's an all-star level player that isn't always treated that way. So, look, my thing to Vooch, it was this way last spring, and I'll continue to say it. If you were unhappy, why didn't you go look for a place where you could be happy?
I think there's a couple things here, though. We've been talking forever about playing through Vooch more. That was the whole reason they acquired him. So if you're him and you're like, okay, should I sign here? And they're like, yeah. And then he signs and he tells me, for example, we talk about it before the game yesterday. I said, I want the team to play through you more. I know that's been a discussion. Through him, not necessarily with him as the end result, but through him. And trying to establish where he needs to be early and how that was going to go. This was a discussion the entire offseason.
Right, which is why I asked the question. This is what happened last year, and it immediately happened after an offseason of we want to play more through Vooch, through a training camp and preseason of we want to play through Vooch. And then they got out there in an actual game. It was like, we're not going to play through Vooch.
And that's why he threw the ball at the stanchion, and Casey and I were desperately trying to hear the conversation between him and Billy Donovan after it happened on the bench.
Speaking of Billy Donovan, we should hear some of what he said after the game, because I think it's significant. And he started by addressing the heated exchange with Nikola Vucevic.
I think whether he was frustrated not touching the ball, the way we were playing offensively, because I certainly could see it too. But, like I told him, I went, listen, I've said this before, I think confrontation's good. I think it's healthy, I think it's good, and I got all the respect in the world for Vooch, and, he felt a certain way, and I kind of said what I felt, and, he's probably not wrong for feeling the way he did. But how do you channel that in a way that kind of galvanizes the group and lifts them up, And, in the moment, maybe I could have handled it better with him, and maybe he could have handled it better with me. It wasn't anything disrespectful or anything else. I think he was just kind of frustrated with the way we were playing. And you know what? I didn't blame him. I felt probably in line with him. But there's got to be a way that we can together solve those issues and those problems. And certainly in timeouts, those things are being confronted and talked about, but we've got to have more stamina on both ends of the floor doing what we're doing. And I think the confrontation piece is really, really good. And I think it's really healthy. I think it needs to happen as much as possible.
the confrontation piece.
Be careful what you wish for on that.
I agree with that, but it had to come to a head at some point. Don't you remember when we were all fighting over who is Goran Dragic on this team? Poor Billy. He doesn't know that I pick all the battles.
Billy can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
He can't in one moment say, "Oh, well, this would have never happened last year. They never would have done anything like this last year." Oh, do you mean like meet? No, it wasn't a meeting. Then what was it? I don't know. Who led it? Schmove it.
Reasons.
Can't have it both ways. It's okay for them to meet. Just say that's what they were doing.
Well,
Because they clearly didn't want you in there.
And I'm not telling Billy how to do his job, but you got to get a team prepared to play a new style. And it isn't just you go here, you go here, you go here. It's saying, look, we're going to have some nights. We're going to shoot a bunch of threes. We're going to have some crappy nights where the shots just aren't falling. But as long as you're shooting good shots, I'm not going to be mad at you. Like the Vooch piece, you handle that and you figure all that out because he was close to being a double-double. He was 11 points, 9 rebounds.
And I don't think he's the guy saying, I need to have a double-double every game.
No, but what did Arturis call him?
Double machine.
Yeah, he said just to be a double machine.
Double machine.
Okay, he was almost that. He almost did the job that they expected from him.
But
Maybe it's not 18 and 14.
They had this issue last year. I mean, Darnell Mayberry wrote about it famously. That's what I first thought of when all this came up.
Them meeting in the code red on Zach.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
we waited until the
And
halftime
Goran
of the Minnesota
Dragic.
game. Right. But Zach's got to play better. He's got to shoot better. Don't sulk when you're missing shots. Keep your head up.